Hey guys, it's Dr. Jennifer with Conscious Healing Solutions. I'm here on Free Therapy Friday to talk to you about stepping into fear, leaning into fear. And what I'm going to talk about today is the concept of leaning into the fear of being vulnerable. So last week we talked about ways to cultivate compassion through self-respect. And part of that was gaining self-respect by attending to our own needs. And part of attending to our own needs is talking about what we need, talking about what we're struggling with. And when I was thinking about this, I thought how difficult this can be because it requires a certain level of vulnerability. It requires stepping into the discomfort of putting our own needs out on the table. And I thought about why we don't do that. Why don't we talk about our fears? Why don't we talk about our areas that we are struggling with? Why don't we talk about the challenges that we're having? And a lot of times it can be that we feel like we should be able to handle it on our own, or we can handle it on our own. We might believe that it won't help anyway. We might believe that maybe people don't want to hear it because people have their own problems. But the issue with that, if we keep our problems hidden, if we keep our problems buried, the issue is that they grow. Our struggles and our problems, they actually grow in darkness. They get worse in darkness. And stepping into the fear of vulnerability requires that we talk about our issues, we talk about our problems. And although this can be uncomfortable, when we actually put out there what we're struggling with, when we bring it into the light, it actually takes away some of the power of our problems. It doesn't mean that our problems completely go away by talking about them, but they don't have as much control over us because we're not dealing with them on our own. And so what we want to think about doing is actually stepping into that discomfort, leaning into that fear of being vulnerable, of maybe perceiving yourself as weak by needing help, and considering, what am I holding on to? What am I avoiding? What am I hiding? Why am I hiding it? What am I afraid of? And when we can be mindful of that, when we can start to look at that, then we can start to take a look at, what are the things that have control over me? What are the things that have too much power over me? What are the things maybe that I'm spending too much time thinking about? And then our next step is to actually begin to release that, to talk about that, whether it is talking with a friend, whether it's talking with a family member, whether it's talking with your therapist, or whether it's deciding, you know what, maybe now is the time to actually seek out therapy because we don't have to do this alone. So stepping into that vulnerability, leaning into that fear can be scary. It doesn't come without pain, right? It doesn't come without having to maybe bring to the surface things that we've been holding on to for a long time. And on the other side of that, we can begin to develop some peace. We can begin to develop this way of letting go, right? Of releasing those things that we've been holding on to for a long time. And this takes bravery. You know, it takes that vulnerability. It takes that trust that maybe if I release these issues, if I start to talk about them, again, they aren't going to have the same power over me. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do this week is to really take a look at those things that you're not talking about. Take a look at those things that maybe you've buried for a long time, maybe because you think it won't help if I talk about them, or you think that I'll appear weak if I bring them to the surface. Take a look at how burying those things, about how keeping those issues in the dark is actually hurting you. And begin to consider different outlets for that. Again, whether it's through talking to friends, whether it is through reaching out to a therapist. Because at the end of the day, if we keep holding on to those things, if we keep burying those things, that's only going to lead to longer term pain. It's only going to lead then, with longer term pain comes suffering. If we can begin to be open to that idea of leaning into fear, leaning into that vulnerability, that's when we're going to start to obtain more of that peace, more of that acceptance of the things that we've gone through. So I hope you guys enjoyed this talk. I hope that you will consider the things that you're not talking about over the next week, and consider ways that you can begin to release them. I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Take care.